Brian, welcome to the show.
What's up, Brad? How you doing, bud?
I'm great. How are you?
I am awesome. Awesome.
Glad to hear. So, how have you been working through the process of arthritis in your life, and where has the growth come from, and how did that occur?
Oh, okay. Right into it. I love it. Um, I imagine you're speaking to my diagnosis that I've had with rheumatoid arthritis. I've had for a little shy of 30 years now, diagnosed around the age of 24. And I imagine in that question, I guess we can give a big summation because there's a long journey in there, right? That we could share. Lots of pitfalls, lots of exploration, lots of learning and growth. And we have a happy ending, or at least at the moment we do. This last year, I've taken myself completely off medication, realizing the more that I have allowed myself to start really letting where I'm at sink in, realizing that I am in a place that I couldn't have even wished for or imagined was possible when I was hurting. All I wanted at that point was some peace and some ease. And I find that when I talk to a lot of clients that are in that position with maybe ankylosing spondylitis or rheumatoid arthritis, that the biggest wish is for just a break. Just to be able to show up in your life takes effort. It takes energy when you're in those conditions, and to show up with that weight just not on you and that pressure, and you can just be and show up. It's like that's a dream in itself. So to be here and then starting to be productive and be active and opening up to living and creating a life that makes me really happy is like a whole different level that I'm still allowing to sink in. Like I just got back from co-facilitating 2 retreats, 11 straight days, full 15-hour days. A lot of our time was spent on a concrete floor with yoga mats and blankets and some cushions, but overall a pretty solid surface. So talking to somebody in that condition where they're hurting all the time and go, hey, you're going to go spend all day sitting on a hard floor. No problems, no medications, to show where I've come. Walking around the place on concrete floors, off into rock pathways, barefoot, up and down stairs, barefoot, multiple days, things that were just thought to be missing from my life for a long time. So just all these little things that sink in, going out for a hike on the trails and like, oh, there's a lot of rocks. So what? So yeah, it's been pretty beautiful. So we can dive more into wherever you want to dive in on that. But yeah, it's been really remarkable lately for me, just
Right.
continuing to really enjoy all of what's possible now.
That's absolutely amazing. Is this a condition that people typically stay on medication for the rest of their lives?
Good question. When I was diagnosed, it was definitely told, yes, here's medication. You're going to take this the rest of your life. We're going to manage. That's the support is you get the expectation that things will probably get worse. We're looking to find something that will slow this down as much as possible. And we're just going to keep an eye on you while you experience this.
Right. So, for your process, since you've come off of medication within the last year, how did that come to be? What did you do in your life so that you were able to do that?
Yeah. Um, I'll acknowledge the negation in this. It wasn't a light switch. It wasn't a flip of a one decision. I had years of exploring nutrition and diets, elimination diets, going it on my own without medication for many, many years, determined to find other ways to heal, whether that starts with the body being massage work, starting to learn more about energetics with Reiki, cranial sacral work, branching off into several other modalities from there that really started to open my eyes to more of how we exist here and we as humans, energetic, emotional, physical, spiritual bodies, all these things coming together, however you that works for you to come together. And at the time, it was still a struggle as far as the condition. Things were still really degrading in the body emotionally. So there was a lot of approaches that just left more of the person experiencing it, me, the person behind all of the experiences of how this affected my heart, whether I had to start considering saying no to the things that I wanted to do because of fear of consequences and fear of what may feel hurt later. And or not having the energy or predictable energy, waking up going, oh, I'd really like to do this. And the body's like, yeah, no, not today. To a point of finally finding a container and realizing I had done everything I could do on my own and realizing that support was the only way forward for me. Thank God. Support had changed a lot from the early 90s to late 2000, teens. So starting in like 2020, I started doing some pretty intense inner work that started to make room and really support the person, like I said, that was having the experience. the me behind all of this, all of the things that I was holding on to, all of the fear that I was afraid was going to happen if I couldn't hold on to it all and keep it all together. So I started taking a really good, intensive look at Brian. I found a container that started introducing a very big concept to me, space to show up and actually be with everything that came up in the holding my life together. So often we have some things locked down and like really tense and tight too, because that's what it takes to manage, especially somebody with rheumatoid arthritis. So to have a container that allowed, in the biggest way I can put it, allowed me to fall apart and meet myself where I was at and be able to learn how to meet myself where I was at with all of the things that I experienced and then start. It's kind of like having your junk drawer. Keep shoving stuff in the junk drawer and it's like, I'll deal with that later. Deal with that later. We know where it's at. And then someday that becomes a closet. Some people get a little bigger into a garage maybe. But at some point, whatever it's in is so filled that you don't even want to go into there anymore. Yeah, we'll just avoid that, right? And so this is kind of like the work that I found that really started to transform stuff for me was like throwing out your junk drawer and having the safety to go, yeah, there it all is. And now that you're in the mess, support and some tools and practices and a method that starts helping you sort through the mess and allowing you to let go of stuff that needs to be let go of. Take a good hard look at like why you believe what you believe and the way you've come to shape who you are and your reality. Could be a belief of, oh yeah, I have to work really hard to be successful, or making money is really takes a lot of work. Obviously, we can look around the world and see people that don't believe that money comes quite easily, effortlessly, and just like this is natural. It just comes. How true are your truths to you? How much are you willing to look at that foundation of what you were dearly holding in your world to be true? Is it serving you? So, learning how to go into that part of myself and all those parts and learn how to continually hold and make space for that. I'm really grateful for my arthritis. I wouldn't be living the life in the depth that I have and looking at life in this way if it hadn't been for me being forced to go down this path. 30 years of healing stuff and 3 solid years of being in the muck and also in the delight and in the joy and the expansion of this work that has led me here.
You phrased it all very beautifully, and I would say most people wouldn't look at conditions that they have or something that they're dealing with that type of attitude ever. Like a lot of people don't, whether it's something, a physical condition, or it's just a mental condition. A lot of us don't ever get to that point of acceptance and trying to be better. It's kind of like with many things in life, we kind of say, okay, I'm dealing with this, I'm screwed, it's whatever. Okay, whatever, right? And it's very enlightening to see someone like you who's been dealing with something for so long and you still have the courage and the ability to fight to make your life better, and you've done that, and I'm sure you continue to do it in and embarking on that healing process. I think it's something that everybody should be trying to take a step in the direction of in their life, which whatever their condition or whatever their situation is with their existence here on earth, because we are human beings. We're not static. We can move, we can change. And I think sometimes we limit ourselves into believing and convincing ourselves that that isn't possible, when in so many cases it can be, if we opened our perception a little bit more, you could say.
Yeah, I really like that, Brad. And for me, what comes up when you say that is the idea that there is a lot of drive towards checking off the box, to achieving a level, to graduated college, cool, onto the career, onto the family. But the idea of better being through achievement. And while goals are great, and it's not uncommon for us to be having goals that just really don't align with our heart, that we're looking
Mhm.
more at waiting for the achievement of reaching the goal to bring the satisfaction. And a lot of times that is severely limiting the idea of what is possible continually. Where can we grow? Even the simple ideas of like when you hear people like, oh, I'm getting older, my eyesight, of course it is. I'm getting older. Oh, I'm losing this ability. How much are you already conditioning yourself to accept that you are falling apart or things are going to degrade? It may happen, but can you be with what is happening rather than telling yourself this is expected and setting almost time frames like, oh, I was 50. Of course this can happen. Like, well, I don't expect this to go till I'm 80. I expect to still be playing when I'm until I'm unable to play. So, can we look at what is going to make you happy along the way? Does your goal light you up? Does it inspire you? And I imagine if you set a big enough goal for yourself, it should feel edgy. It should feel expansive. It should be a goal that makes you feel like, ugh, I don't know. That's going to require me to, who is that going to require you to become to achieve that goal? So often we look at the goal and we try to think of ourselves in that role. And it's like, hopefully you're going to be somebody else by the time you achieve that goal. Hopefully this journey of your expansion to that goal has brought you some form of having to step further into an ideal person. Like if you want to be successful, somebody that runs a company and somebody that has all these things, how do they behave? Are they the person that's sitting around scrolling through Instagram an hour and a half in the morning, a couple hours through the day? Or are they the person that's up making time for their physical health as well as space for themselves? Is it, you see what I'm saying? There's so many things that how do you want to show up?
The journey is more important than the end goal, and it is, right? And sure, the end goal is important, and having a valuable end goal that supports your growth and having that goal cater to your life and your abilities, similar to what you were saying, is super important. But it's like you're saying, who are you becoming along the way to that goal? And Alex Hormozy said, you've already achieved goals that you thought would make you happy, right? And so it's such an interesting phenomenon, and it's like, sometimes we reach a certain goal, and on the other side of it, we are a better person and we have grown, but we have so many times this perception that once I get this or once I achieve this, then I'll finally be happy, right? And my standpoint on happiness may be different than a lot of people's. I like to use the word contentment. And I think you can reach a state in your life where you're overall pretty content with your life and you're going good. But I think happiness is a fleeting emotion. You can have experiences of happiness and feelings of joy, which are absolutely incredible, and you should strive to have more of those moments. But I think when we all say, "Hey, I'm trying, I'm doing this and living my life this way because I just want to be happy." If you're chasing anything that much, it's usually when you're chasing something so rapidly, it keeps running farther and farther away from you because you fail to realize that some of the stuff that can make you happy or content is already in your life right now, and it may not be perfect, right? There's always room for growth. I think the growing and the healing process is a never-ending journey as a human being, and that sometimes discourages people from starting in the first place. They're like, all right, well, if I'm never going to be 100% happy all the time, well, then what's the point of even doing it anyway? It's like, well, because instead of having 7 days a week when you're unhappy, you'll have 6 days where you're happy. Maybe an hour or two on Sunday, you'll feel a little bit crappy and you'll be in a bad mood. But what is that like compared to being miserable all the time? A mindset that can help everybody is that growth mindset, right? And realizing that you are in control of a lot of things in your life, even if it seems like you aren't. And of course, there are some situations in life where you can't control it in the moment, and you still have to go there and do this. But you can always change your perception and the way you view the situation. Sometimes, and a lot of times, you can change the situation, but when you can't, you can still change how you view it. And then, in you changing how you view it, it can make that situation that was originally pretty bad going there and doing that every day. It may not be perfect, but it's not as bad as it was before.
Yeah, you've said a lot of good stuff in there. We could go so many places. I really like where you ended, which speaks to mindset work, right? Starting to shift how we look at showing up. And that's such an important keystone and stepping stone along the way. It speaks to an important part of us, getting that mind, which likes to have a lot of voices in there. I would say there's also beyond that is making like what you started speaking to in a few ways and building your capacity to be with more. You mentioned this a few different times through your thing, which is happiness being a fleeting emotion. Yes, can you be with happiness? And there's times when happiness is going to move through and you're going to have a different experience that is going to require you to be with sadness, grief, or to be with bliss or love, gratitude. Expansive emotions like those are often as challenging for people to be with as what they view as suffering. Ooh, what happens when I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop? If I open up to that much, something's going to happen. Ooh, I wonder what happened. Where we learned that one. right? But the underlying capacity is to not hang on to the emotion, not to hang on to the happiness, not to stay in the like, oh, life is happy. That there's no way to be selective and turn down like, oh, I want less pain and suffering, and shrinking your capacity to experience. It's usually done out of avoidance of, and what we see a lot is self-gaslighting using even healthy tools of exercise, mindset work. I mean, great tools that are supportive, and every tool also can be used when you don't want to be with something. When you turn to coming home and having a bad day and there's been a high emotional day at the office and it's really bringing up stuff in you, do we turn to exercise and go turn out, or do you turn to drink? A limited capacity to be with what is there and showing up, and to be able to hold what it brings up for you in your experience. So expanding that capacity and learning to be able to, on your way to your goal, which I think more of like markers, because when you get a goal, are you done? No, we just shift. We're on to something else. We're doing the same process. It's like there's not an end goal. We're playing this game until you're done. How full out do you want to play? And you may be very comfortable where you're at. That's great. That's awesome. As long as it's working for you. There's no place you should be other than if it feels good and you feel like supported in your life. If you don't, and there's more that whisper is starting to find yourself trapped because you find yourself in loops of mental over and over, or trying to live up to expectations that are not from you. These goals are coming from somewhere else, whether they were culturally conditioned by friends, by parents, by family expectations, whatever it is. If you're struggling to find a way to live your life and feel good and supported and full in your life, yeah, there's the option to look at what that is and to bring a bigger capacity to handle that, to step more into that. I love this quote that my mentors always shared. Healing work is not a walk in the park on a sunny day. It is a walk into a burning forest, and there are dragons to slay. So it's going to be challenging. It's going to be hard, but you are going to expand your capacity each and every time you walk through that darkness. You bring more light. More light brings more ease, more capacity. The more things that you get to have flow through you, the less you have to hold on. It's so ironic that what rheumatoid arthritis and chronic pain, and a lot of people in general, it's that tight grip that we're just so scared to let it be any other way. We've got this idea that we've had, whatever we got, we're working, making it work for us, and this is the way it has to be held together. And it's in the falling apart and finding the safety and somebody that can hold you in your falling apart, and then help stay in there and be a resourced, grounded person, a grounded nervous system for that person to find themselves, to put their puzzle back together in a new way.
Well, one of the things that really hit me is we can still use good habits or healthy outlets to still distract ourselves from some of the things that we have to deal with. Like, for example, I hear a lot of gym influencers and people who just, say, hey, you're dealing with this and this 1 million long list of things that you're dealing with, just go to the gym, right? And I would agree in the sense that there are some things that you could be feeling, some emotion that you could be feeling, that you go to the gym and you walk out of there and it solves the problem, and you feel good, and whatever the problem or the feeling that you were experiencing, it fleets from you and it doesn't come back. But there are also a lot of things that you have to deal with, and you'd be like, all right, the gym can help and it could be a good outlet, and you're dealing with this, and all right, it would be helpful to go there and do that rather than sitting in your room and overthinking about it. But you also have to give yourself the space to figure it out, because what you could do is deal with an issue and take the advice of just go to the gym, bro. And you go to the gym every day, every single day, and 5 years later, you still feel like crap and you're still dealing with that one situation because you didn't hold the space for yourself to heal from it and go through the emotions. Because sometimes you have to go through the suffering and you have to sit there with yourself. I would argue that instead of purely sitting there for hours on end, definitely write your thoughts down and get them out on paper, and then you can analyze things better. If you're able to or feel comfortable enough talking to people that you're close with about it, that would definitely be really helpful. But the point is, we can so often still distract ourselves with healthy outlets, and they can help, but they don't necessarily solve the problem. We still need to solve the problem, and we've gotten so good at this as a collective society of just having, like you were mentioning before, just having this giant basket, and then it, or whatever, I don't remember the exact example you gave, but you said that it evolved into a closet, and it's like it started from something small, and now it's just all this big thing, all these big problems and stuff piled together because you didn't deal with them. And you could say, okay, well, it's going to be tough to deal through with all this stuff, and that there's so much here that that I haven't dealt with. What's the point of me doing it anyway? But if you just pick it out one by one and deal with the problems, sure, it's going to take time. It might take years, it might take 10 years, but you're going to heal. And along that process, not even just at the end of the 10 years, along that process, you will start to feel better every single day and just a little bit better. And life itself, your existence here, will be better. And that's what everybody wants, right? We're all dealing with something, everyone has issues, and everybody wants things to be better, but not all of us are motivated enough, or we have a mindset that limits us from opening ourselves up to new possibilities so that we can grow. And as a result of us having that limiting belief about ourselves and our situation, it prevents us from growing, and then we continue to suffer sometimes for the rest of our lives.
A lot of good stuff. I think the gym is a great metaphor just because it's intention. What we're getting to now is the intention behind the action. So going and having a physical process. If that's a great outlet, yeah, you have energy, you're connected, you're actually with your process. It brings a great sense of mind body connection because you actually are forced to start tuning in. Just go be angry, tap into energy, and ignore. Now we're just throwing heavy weight around to release energy, and now we're putting the physical body in danger because we're not taking the time to be present with proper structure and form. And for a lot of people, anger is a very questionable emotion to express. It's big, it's scary. Obviously, if they're going to the gym and having that tapped in energy, they're finding some expression, but there is a way that they're not being really connected to it. It's not directing the direct issue. The other thing you brought up was, yeah, the other end of the core spectrum there is like go and sit and think. Mind loves to think. That's its job. It's a good thing that the mind is not the one that is supposed to figure out our lives or supposed to be or is not in charge of calling us forward. It is not in charge of our passion, our desires, our wants and needs. That is our heart. That is where we shift leading from and allow the brain to keep a collection and categorize and keep us safe as we go through and follow our heart. So often we're finding our culture puts the brain in front of that, and it's putting the brain in a position of power of like, okay, you be the one to figure out life, figure out safety. And that's all it wants to do is keep us safe. So in safety, there's limitation. Rather than staying in limitation, well, how can we start to expand safety to other areas of our life to bring more safety, to be with more? Again, expanding capacity to be with. Life's going to knock you around. There are going to be challenges. You're here to grow. We grow. It's been well too documented in too many ways that trauma is our way of growth. Birth is trauma. There's so many things. Loss of a first girlfriend, boyfriend, partner is a traumatic experience. There are many ways that we experience trauma that force us to seek new foundations to grow from. So if we're going to have that, how can we start to resource ourselves to be with that?
There's so many lessons to be learned through or suffering or a bad experience or a traumatic experience, arguably speaking, more than the positive experiences we have. And of course, we all want to have more positive experiences than negative experiences.
So the other end of the spectrum is being able to be with that capacity. And there is a discernment to be had, again, and because you spoke to just the downside of just going and thinking about it. So yes, going home and being with that hurt, can you be with what hurt feels like and actually stay with it and go, yes, there's this sensation in my chest. It's hot, it's crunchy, it's getting tighter. I'm starting to get really sweaty and I'm starting to not want to be here with this. And notice what comes up in how hurt feels to you. Because I could say I hurt, and anybody listening to this could be in many different places. Where they can meet me is I feel this pain near my heart. It's tight, it's prickly, it's getting hotter, it's starting to thump. Now everybody knows where I'm at. And there is that difference, what you brought up so well, and why I want to touch on this is like, oh, yes, then I could actually fuel the fire with my story and my mind coming involved, noticing, oh, these are all the times this is why you deserve this pain. Of course you feel this way. You messed up at work and you let this person down and you did all these things wrong. Fueling the fire. Is that being with it? No. That's adding to the fire and wallowing. So there is that learning curve of getting to the point of noticing when that comes up going, thank you, mind. I appreciate you wanting to keep me from being with this pain. It's doing its best to remind you of why we don't go here. And if we can ask it to just give you a second and find some safety, Can you let that hurt part of you, that part that hasn't been heard, can you let it express itself? Can you let that part of you, because it is a part of you, and by denying it and shoving it down, saying, no, 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 I don't have to feel this. It's like a 5-year-old walking in the room and you're like, nope, don't want to hear what you have to say. Go away. Get the hell out of here. Would you do that? Would you bat that kid away? Or do you what's the difference between actually taking a moment going, oh, you're hurt. Oh, yeah, tell me all about it. You're just letting him be hurt. You'll watch a kid move through this in 90 seconds. Harvard studies confirm that we can move through an emotion when truly connected with and felt. It moves through in as little as 90 seconds. What do you see when kids get held? They turn right around and go back to play, right? Oh, shit, they're done. Okay, I guess you're done crying and wawing your eyes out. I held you for a few moments, and now you're back to having a good time with your friends. Great. How can we bring more of that back? How can we open that back up to come back in and out of, oh, I was with this heavy thing. Cool. What do I need? I need some quiet time just to kind of recharge. I need some good food. Cool. Now how do you feel? I feel good. It's still heavy, but I feel okay. I'm with it. Like I'm moving through. I have to go to this thing. And moving on, what you started talking about was suffering. And I think it's really important because what changed my perspective is the definition of suffering that I really enjoy is suffering only happens when you are in an argument with reality. You want it to be some other way than what it is. And that brings up acceptance usually, because like, how do you're just telling me to accept everything. Yes and no. There's layers, just like awareness, just like acceptance. There are layers to this, right? Does it feel accepting when you hear, you just have to accept it? That means just like, it is what it is, bro. Just, yeah, it sucks for you. Like that totally sucks that you lost your job and your girl left, dog died. Now we're in a country song. Right? But everything happens like, yeah, sucks for you, suck it up. Does that feel accepting, or does it feel accepting to say, hey, how do you feel about losing your job? Hurt, man. I'm really disappointed. But in 10 years at that job, fuck, I'm sad. And making room for that, getting more specific. Okay, where does that sadness feel in the body? Like getting to the physical again. Sadness may mean a lot of things to people, but what it feels like my heart is breaking. I feel like I want to collapse. Now we're starting to be with what's there. That's acceptance. Like allowing that full feeling of disappointment, of sadness, of hurt. And this extends to the other full range too. We've talked about it. We can joy, bliss, love, all those things, letting it all in, why it's there, what it is about, but being curious with slowing your breath, making some room, reminding yourself that you can go as slow as you need to make space to feel what is actually there. And this is a huge part of a lot of my work with clients is learning to be able to regulate, to show up, to catch these things when they're happening and have the tools ready and resourced to make that space, to tap in and find what it is for them to experience safety enough to be like, okay, I can stay here in this wave of whatever it is. Or when they get to that point of overwhelm, realizing what overwhelm is and learning how to resource themselves to stay and find safety and overwhelm and what they need rather than just pushing through, rather than just autopiloting, disconnecting and stuffing, avoiding, enduring, any other ways, trying to take care of other people so they don't have to take care of themselves, tuning out to their experience. There's so many ways we've learned to do that. That is where I look at suffering. Like, can you expand? So there's a difference in acceptance, right? And there's a whole level of learning that, which is, again, these are the things that have really transformed my relationship with rheumatoid arthritis.
Yeah.
The original question is still being answered, like in this top of the thing, like the whole podcast is basically like a lot of things that have transformed.
If you can let in each emotion or each situation as it comes, deal with it, and then the next one comes, deal with it, then everything starts to flow better, even though situations still happen and problems still occur. But it flows better because I suppose this example is similar to what we were talking about before. We have different parts of our brain, and we have maybe a section where there's a little gate, and there's these problems that come in or we're dealing with in reality. Then it forms in our mind. It's like, okay, it knocks on your gate, it knocks on your door. Hey, can you let me in and can we deal with this? And you say, you look like you have like a little peephole on the other side. I guess you look through, you're like, no, I don't want to deal with that. So you leave it there, and it keeps knocking though, right? And then eventually it gets tired and it stops knocking, but then a year later it starts knocking again even harder, right? But okay, so there's that one problem that you won't let in.
We call that the
Then
feather, the brick, or the Mack truck.
what does that
Life's
mean?
going to talk to you when life wants when it is time for something for you. You're probably going to hear a whisper. You're probably going to hear that little knock, that little feather tickle. Hey, you should probably stop doing that. It's really unhealthy. You keep picking friends like this that show no integrity and don't return your values, and you keep looking for acceptance by people that don't meet those standards for you. And you keep casting this role in your life that you're looking for this friend, and you keep casting for people that have no value, no integrity. They keep showing up. Okay, cool. Yep, got burned again. Yep, feather. Cool. Okay. Here's a bigger instance. Now you have like, oh, you went out with the wrong people and this is what happened. Here's a brick. Like, let's smack you up the head really good. And like, are you paying attention? You really want to continue this. Somebody just burned you really bad. They just slept with your girlfriend behind your back. They were calling your friend. They were stealing money from you. Like, really? Okay. Brick. Right. Then you get the option of, oh, you still don't want to listen. You're going to still repeat the same behavior. Well, let's just run you over. Right. And this is where the other analogy, you got to let people in their suffering are in there because they're learning their lesson. And it may sound very harsh and cold, but it is our lessons that are helping us. So if we're all swimming across a channel and we're having a nice swim exercise and you're my coach, or I'm the coach in the thing, and we got people swimming across, and I think, and I look down, I see this guy like looks like he's really challenged. Looks like he's struggling to make his stroke, and I reach down, grab him out of the water, and pull him in the boat. Like, I'm going to save you, man. It looks like I'm going to come in and do my job. I'm your coach. And the guy's like, "What are you doing?" Like, "You were struggling." He's like, "I have never been this far or felt this good." Oops. Right? Everybody's on their own journey. Let them deal with what their stuff. Just because it looks the way it does to you, you gotta check in on them and let them have their feedback here. It would have been different if I would have looked down and said, "Hey, you good? You want me to pull you out?" Like, "No, I'm great. Cool. Fuck yeah, buddy. Now I can cheer you on." It's his journey, his life. Let him lead. Sometimes we choose to lead ourselves into really uncomfortable situations, giving us the opportunity for change. So it's only a
This,
choice away, and unfortunately, we realize how scary those choices are, and how much we
yeah,
avoid making a choice of change because of a story we're making up in our head.
that change is so close around the corner, and you have to do something different, go somewhere you've never been before to get a different outcome. It's like if we think our life as a whole isn't good, it's like, well, we got to look at everything in our life and say, okay, this is contributing to that negativity and bringing me down more. Okay, this habit or this thing that I do every day, oh no, that's actually pretty good, let's keep that in there. You just deconstruct and dissect you just dissect your life. We kind of acknowledge that we're doing a lot of things that aren't helpful, but we decide not to change them anyway because it takes work. It's hard sometimes, and our brain is wired for comfort, and obviously in a lot of cases you have to seek discomfort and just get out of your comfort zone and go somewhere you've never been before so that you can grow and be somewhere and be someone that you've never been before, right? And that someone in this case is whoever your ideal self is to you and whoever you want to be, but you haven't given yourself the space or the ability or the new habits or tools to get yourself to that place, because we have to give it to ourselves. I mean, I always think about the idea that for most of us, now for some of us, you may have a conversation with someone one day, someone comes into our life and they're just like, hey, yeah, let me just come on right in, invade, and just completely come into your life, and I'm gonna fix everything for you, right? For 99% of people, that doesn't happen. So what do we have to do? We're all waiting for some outside circumstance or for someone to come and save us. But the reality for a lot of us is that nobody's coming to save us. But we can save ourselves if we so choose to do that, right? We have the option to do it, but some of us choose not to do it anyway. Or there are also some of us that quite literally don't even see that we have that option. And then that's an even more tough place to be in because we're in control of a lot, but sometimes we can't see that we're in control of something because of a certain limiting belief or certain situation that happened or someone said to us 10 years ago. There's many situations and occurrences that happen in our childhood that continue to influence our thoughts, emotions, and behavior throughout the rest of our lives. How do you deconstruct that and inform people on that idea?
Yeah, really good question. And just before we go to that, just acknowledging what you were bringing up about having choice, which it may for a lot of people feel like they don't, and that's a lot to be with, and that would be a first step, learning to be with that idea and that what comes up for you when I have no choices about where I'm at. I'm stuck. And notice if you can actually be with what comes up, or notice the resistance and the urge to not be with even that, to keep yourself like that is just a scary, overwhelming thought. There are people that are definitely been in this. I've been in the spot where I am on my own. I'm going to do this. I'm going to figure it out myself. There doesn't seem to be people really there to help and support me, because everybody targets one thing in rheumatoid arthritis, which is the body and nutrition and diets, and there's still no talk of better. So speaking to those who there is a time, and we have made such progress going to a place now that there is options to turn to for support. There are so many coaches. Like, this is a dawn of somatic work. Somatic meaning, body work, soma meaning body. So work of connecting mind and body, and understanding that the physical experience, the cellular memory that we have in each and every cell, it holds on to all of our experience. And to actually negate that, trying to do just mind work, which is super powerful and important, but to include now the body and the emotional bodies and bringing those more into harmony is more accessible than it's ever been. It wasn't an option for me when I was first diagnosed. So to be a part of this movement and to be a part of something that is holding space for more people to realize they do have a choice, and that there are people and supports, and look around for one that resonates with you. Talk to people. Your system will let you know if you're going to talk to a few people, like what feels good, what doesn't. But know that you just don't have to go this alone, right? So I want to just share on that. And it was the question you're asking about how we come to develop our ways of looking at the world, our belief patterns, how we carry ourselves, our personalities, how we shape our personal realities, how those inspirations become thoughts, which are now filtered through experience and beliefs. So our reality and what we let in and through is shaped through all of that before we even create or see it. So we're really talking about removing ourselves to the point of being able to see how that filtering process works. So great question. How do these filters come up? Because I'm sure there are cellular memories, and we pass things down through genetics. And I'm a big fan of epigenetics and Bruce Lipton's work, which is that beliefs end up shaping our genes because we respond to our environment. So if our beliefs are shaping our reality and we're responding to it, we're reinforcing a behavior pattern over and over and over. So it becomes a part of our behavior in our genes, which gives us an enormous amount of power in the fact that we can end generational suffering by changing our belief patterns and be the ones to actually transform our family's possibilities going forward by doing the work. In your lifetime, you can transform your entire lineage moving forward of what is true for them. Because as we grow up, we come to this world, we may have some things that may be somewhat available to us, but it is the reinforcement over time in our development through the ages of up to about 7 that really shape who we are. We don't learn to walk and talk because somebody sat down and taught us everything. We were talking before we understood the ABCs. Repetition, hypnosis. We watch people walk long enough, our minds and our bodies, our nervous system is starting to be like, oh, I can copy that. I'll start to try. And the nervous system goes and figures it out. And it's funny that we're just talking about the nervous system now, when how many times does the mind come up through the conversation? The nervous system is how big and is our interactive experience into this world. Everything we see, feel, do processes through that system, and how little we ever included in the conversation of who we are. So if we look at, you spend 9 months in your mom's belly, in her energy, in her womb, that is your home. That is you, right? This is familiarity. This is where you have been birthed and created, and where you've come to be in. So when you come out into this world in our birth, that's very similar. That's very much home. That is, mom is self. Why mom and kid have that connection. It's part of them. It's where they've been. So we start to view mom as an extension of self. Dad comes in. He is the first other energetic energy in our life that comes in as we're born into that room. Typically, ideally, hopefully, this isn't always the case, but that overwhelming, loving presence of another is coming in with a different energy, but it's love, it's compassion, it's acceptance. That is the representation to us of everything beyond ourselves at that point, others, the world. So as we grow up in these 1 to 7 years, we have different needs that need to get met. And depending on where we may or may not have needs fully met, we may find different patterns develop of how we go to about relating to the world, personality patterns, and how we respond when we're in overwhelm. We also start to shape our beliefs around what mom and dad model to us. And maybe that's a grandparent, maybe it's another authoritative figure that raises you. It's somebody else in that place but took that role on. Lots of examples that could spin out of this, but simply modeling this one. How does mom view the world? Does she neglect her own needs to raise a family and put all of her own dreams aside? Does she take care of herself, or does she put others' needs first? What are you watching mom? How does mom respond in arguments or tough times, especially with dad? What does mom tell you as you're growing up? What's possible? Oh, yep, that breakup was that way, and people always leave, friends always leave. That's what you hear. What do you see? What do you feel from mom? Does she feel alive and well in her life? Does she show up for herself? Does she have healthy relationships? We go on and on, right? What's her self-esteem? What are her boundaries? What is her sense of self? How does all this modeled? Meet needs and wants. How does she express needs and wants? How are all these modeled to that child growing up? What are they taking in? Same with dad. How do others show up for that person? Dad, I really want to play with you. Let's go do something. Go away. I'm working right now. I got this project to finish. I don't have time for you right now. Over and over. Others aren't there for me. Others don't show up. Others don't hear me. My needs and wants don't matter. You start to see all these little effects of what the child saw, what we heard, what we felt in those open 7 years of hypnosis and becoming ingrained into life here on this planet before we had logical thinking formed, which is about 7 years old. We start to realize that life is different out there in the world than it is at home. Other houses are different than your house. So by the time we have all that and we go into the world, we have a foundation of beliefs and ways to approach the world of what safety is, how to behave, how to react. And we've copied and mimicked these times so many times, they're on autopilot. So when we get a big argument with a partner later in life and there's something too intense to deal with, what do? Are you the first person to leave the argument and want to get out of the room? Or are you the person that goes to start cleaning up the kitchen, to organize, to control, have some sense of input because your internal world is too chaotic and you can't control that? So we start to see how we show up. And if you're wanting to change and really looking at when people say you can't change, this is what we're looking at. We get down to, yes, this level of pulling roots out of like, this is the character that learned to show up this way in response to these actions. Do you want to put a new character in your movie? It takes time to develop that new character, to train them, to act them, but we have to have the awareness that that character has been showing up and on the stage, and we're awareness of, I saw that character. Of others don't show up for me, so they're not even going to try to join the gym or that thing they wanted to do. Oh, I really want to join that club. Remember, yeah, others don't show up for me, so I'm not even going to bring it up. Okay. Right? So you start seeing how that starts to tie together. So if you want to look like, is that the life you want to live? Do you want to live that, or do you want to follow that? Make space for the heart that said, "Hey, I want to go out and be in community. I want to go out and join that thing." What got in the way of that heart? Yeah, let's be with that, and let's learn to hold that and learn what's all wrapped up in that little one's experience that had that experience of walking away from dad's desk that nobody else ever held him. You're an adult now. You can cut the cords from mom and dad and come in and be that parent to that part of you and actually be the ideal parent. What did that kid need? I needed dad to tell me he loved me. Okay, cool. Can you show up for that kid and give him your love right now by giving him time instead of being the dad, tell him, go away. I don't have time to hear you. And you're wallowing of being upset that you can't go play at this thing that you want to go do. Right. So we start to see how all that starts to model, and we're just being a dad to ourselves the way we actually didn't really like. So how would you like to be a dad to yourself? How would you like to show up?
There's so many of these aspects and situations that affect us throughout our lives, and the unfortunate part is that so many of us don't ever discover that these are the reasons as to why situations are occurring so much of the time. It's like, people will go throughout their entire lives feeling that they aren't good enough, and they don't ever think to look back at, their relationship with their parents or what a certain situation that occurred of, oh, yeah, mom and dad said that to me every time that I did that as a kid. Okay, that's probably why I feel that way now. And every time a situation that, when this event occurs, this is how I feel. Okay, it's related to that. And then you can work from there. But,
And that's
what
scary,
this,
right? Because now you're looking
yeah.
at putting mom and dad, they're no longer on a pedestal,
Hmm.
especially dad, because he's an other, right? He had to be there, and we know we did the best they did the best they could, but they had to do this because this is the way it was. Noticing the mind, the adult version that wants to come in and no, 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 no. It's perfectly justifiable for that hurt to be there, and there's still that part that's hurt. Right. So we get to through this process, we get to see mom and dad with more compassion. We get to see them as humans. That yeah, they did the best they could. They passed down what they learned. Absolutely. And I imagine you still have needs that weren't met. You still had your experience, the times you needed to be held when you didn't get to get held, times when you needed attention and you didn't get it, right? That safety. And before we get too off, because I know we've talked about a lot of things, and I know I jumped back in here, Brad, but it was came to me, and it's something I really like. So we've talked about diving in quite a bit, exploring and all the rough stuff. We also do that with all the good stuff too. There is the learning to have self gratitude practice for realizing how you start to show up for yourself every day in all the little ways to start to turn that dial of attention to seeing so often the things that we just tend to neglect and often like, oh, you're talking about being in the muck all the time. Yes, but how often do you get a compliment or do something well where you even refuse to take the compliment or admit, like, oh, yeah, well, that's it. I'm just supposed to do that thing.
Mm.
Like, I made killer dinner tonight and put it on the table. It was all on time. It flowed together. And like, yep, that's just what I do. Like, yeah, celebrate yourself. You put dinner on the table, fed yourself good, nourishing food. You accomplished that. Like just showing up, you got out of bed on time, made it to work on time. These are all ways that we start to re-acknowledge where we are showing up in our lives and the things that we do love about us. Getting clear on our values, which you talked about a long time ago, which is starting to have a good point of reference for where we operate from. Is does that align with your value? No, then okay, easy enough to not pay attention to. Where does this ruffle up your value, and how does this thing land with your values to get more of a bearing on charting your course? If you want, we can walk through just a couple minutes of how to create a little bit of safety, like a very basic thing on how to start bringing in safety. Because we've talked a lot about that being important, and I would feel better knowing that I left something on the table for people to take away that they could actually go and start to bring in to their lives rather than just being, okay, he said these things. I don't know what to do with that. It is an experience. It is the sense of where you arrive and being with your nervous system of that like exhaling breath. The best way I can describe it is like when you finally give yourself permission to take that and you let that go and you actually feel really peaceful, that starts to tap into that sense of safety. It is an actual switch in the nervous system. It's not, it goes beyond woo woo in the sense of, oh, yeah, safety, some, new age concept. But we've evolved from on this planet with a nervous system that's been here for hundreds of millions of years, fight or flight being 500 million years old in our system. That'd be the freeze response. Sorry. Then we get into fight or flight in about 400 million years. So these have been here a long time. It's a defense mechanism, right? Freeze comes from being fish, how to avoid a predator, stop. When in danger, freeze. Then we have hunts coming along a little later for whatever variation of antelope and tiger, predator and prey having that. So there is that fight or flight response that comes in. But what you see in nature is you see a animal after a hunt or a chase. Perhaps you've seen one get away. Maybe you've seen a horse or a dog do this. They do it a lot. Is you'll see them shake, and that is their nervous system doing a automatic task of going from fight or flight, sympathetic mode, to parasympathetic mode. Rest, restore, repair, heal, whatever it is. All too much information out there about when we go to fight or flight mode, we go into chemical changes in the body, blood circulates from different, it gets pulled from different places. We're not going to get into that endless things, but organs aren't being repaired, nutrition isn't being absorbed, logical thought is limited, if at all available. It is purely instinctual, responsive survival. Yes, we are not animals being hunted. Well, some jobs may feel like it, but we also assume a lot of postures and stresses throughout the day. Our shoulders up, our chest is rounded, our tails are tucked, all body postures for the nervous system to go, hey, Are we in danger right now? And we have learned and conditioned ourselves as humans to hold on to that, to not come home and have that shake anymore, to not come out of that pattern and go, we've all heard shake it off. There's a reason for it. But in that sense, that shows just how much we hold. And so if we're in that state, you're like, oh, I never have traumas. I never had these things. Like, we process a huge amount of information every day, opening our channels by creating a safe space for ourselves to feel like all the parts of ourselves can actually show up and be welcome. I find is a rare thing for a lot of people. We're willing to do that for others. Or you're like, I'll extend every greatness to my friends to let them unload and be fully held and seen and just let them be and not need to fix them. And just like, so imagine becoming that for yourself. Like, not fixing, not judging, allowing all of that to quiet enough that you could slow down enough. And this is a great way to start it, is just slow your pace, slow your walking, slowing down a rhythm in your breath. I find creating a safe environment, which means closing off some doors, making some smells that I like, some incense or oils, putting some candles or some music that really suits my mood and invites me to a point of feeling good. And I start to pay attention to the breath, allowing it to get slower on the exhales, bringing it in through the nose for 4 seconds or so. And you can start with just letting it fall out with a little restriction, either through pursing the lips or putting a little restriction in the back of the throat to hear an ocean kind of sound, and just letting that breath fall out longer and slower each and every time. You can even go into adding a pause at the top of inhaling, pausing, holding for a few. 3, 2, 1. Starting to let the exhale out through some pursed lips for 7, 8 seconds. Nice and slow. Feeling the belly, the chest start to sink. Letting the focus, you notice you start to pay attention to how the body feels and moves, like that chest. Get to the bottom. We inhale again. Oh, the belly fills up. Can you relax the chest? Let the belly fill up and just pause. Hold that breath. See if you can relax in the breath. And then letting it out slow, slow, slow. How slowly can you let it out? Does your chest let it out first, or your belly? We can repeat that just for a few rounds. You may start to find that there's a place in your body that you start to notice you checked in that feels just good to be at. Could be anywhere. Chest, stomach, a right elbow. And just allowing that sense of safety, a place where you feel called and feels like home. It feels kind of gushy. Just keep looking around your body. If you find tension, that's okay. You can, there's tension there in my left shoulder. Cool. Keep looking for that place that feels good. Noticing if you can just let tension show up. Again, now we're just letting things be as they are. No need to change, no need to fix. Being with what's there, reminding yourself, yep, I'm safe. Looking for that safe spot, and then breathing into that spot. This is one way of doing it. There are several small exercises that we get into, tapping into the vagus nerve, which is the nerve that is responsible in polyvagal theory for that switch of survival to rest. There are lots and lots of ways to explore how to bring these practices into your world, so you can start to have a sense of being able to provide that sense of space for yourself.
I was doing some of the breathing while you were describing it, and
How do you feel?
Good, and I also feel some tension in certain places, and then some other places feels good over there, which is an interesting process. And I'll
What's
have
it
to
like right
explore it
now?
more.
Yeah, to hold that dual awareness, like where you're at right now. What's it like to be like, oh, nothing to change, but I notice I have tension here. I have space here. Taking in just what is. And notice how it comes up is just even sitting with trying to be more curious or trying to understand, and watching the mind want to be like, but what is that tension? Why is it there? What's going on? And just allowing that to be there too. Like, yep, nothing to fix, nothing to change. Can you meet yourself and be the hug of acceptance for all parts of you? Think about all of these things that are showing up, they're you. So if that is a challenge, how is the world? How are others supposed to receive you? Or what do you imagine they're going to receive you as if you are not able to start receiving all of yourself? Or is this an expectation that others should be able to make room for places of yourself that you can't yet? And this is that solidity. This is that when you see people that you're like, man, they feel really good with themselves, is embracing and being able to be more with all of you. To be able to take the hard look at, yeah, that's part of me was hurt when I was a kid. And that every time the situation comes up, it causes me to react this way. And I'm going to take the choice to own my life and go through the roughness and to figure out how I can go from reacting to being able to respond with an intentional response, and that to go like, oh, I noticed that part of me wants to still be a little bitter or angry in this, and it's because I'm hurt. So I can be with that and still decide how to interact with the situation. Show up the way you would like to. Oh, I love that part of me. Oh, yeah, I know that hurts you. I got you. We're good. Yep, I got you. And this person's not that thing. So we have compassion for this person right now because they just helped you get in touch with yourselves.
Great exercise that I'll be indulging and exploring in more. So I'll update you on that. And absolutely incredible. Bryan, I really appreciate you coming on the show today. It's been an absolute blast. We covered so much great stuff.
Love it, Bradley. Thank you so much for having me here. This was a good time. Great show. Love holding this space. Anytime, brother. Look forward to chatting to you more.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll link all your socials and everything in the description. But to voice it here, where can people find your Instagram, your services, all that great stuff?
Absolutely. Easiest way is, yeah, through Instagram. Streamline everything down. It's at Being Bryan Raymond with an underscore in between each of those words.
Sounds
DM
good.
me, look it up. We'll free connection calls, all that good stuff to get in touch. We can make it happen and see what it takes to look like have more of you show up in your life.
Perfect. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks for tuning in.